We've got to remember it was an iceberg that sailed past Newfoundland, which ended up sinking the Titanic.
Doug Allen is here because it's iceberg season. He's part of a scientific expedition. Every summer, thousands of icebergs float south from the Arctic into the shipping lanes and oil fields off the coast of Newfoundland. This team are here to help protect those multi-billion-dollar industries by trying to understand more about where the icebergs are heading. The man leading the expedition is Neil Riggs.
So we put it back in the water again, okay, and if we lose control, then we take it in, we secure it, and if that goes nowhere, we go home.
The big problem with icebergs is simple. They float.
Iceberg ice reflects radar 69 times less effectively than a ship of the same cross-sectional area.
So yeah, we got some kind of scale on board here.
So you could be sailing along and doing very good seamanship, looking at your radar, and there's the thing all of a sudden, and you're upon it, and it's still a massive piece of ice relative to your ship. So it could make a nice little hole.
The team will have to understand the influence of a large number of variables if they're to distinguish between harmless icebergs and dangerous ones.
It's a complicated jigsaw. It's a little bit, you could think of it as a crime scene where you have the forensic people go in and they pick up little bits of clues and together you make a bigger picture. What I'm doing is just adding my little piece to the overall picture and hopefully helping their mathematical models to be more real.
Doug is a specialist cold water diver. It's his job to photograph the underside of the icebergs.
We'll go over to some of those smaller pieces, please.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Yes, Captain Manning, are we okay to put the divers...
Rick Stanley is looking after safety.
Who knows what's going to happen? There's so much pressure in this ice that it blows, it explodes. But there's pressure in there that can blow a piece of iceberg off the ice, probably 15 or 20 feet.
And we were just pottering around and suddenly, with no warning at all, the whole thing split in half and it was almost like it was all falling into each other. This might be a bit unstable.
This is a huge berg.
I'd rather dive around one that wasn't falling apart.
Yeah.
These giant frozen mountains are born from the most innocent beginnings. Snowflakes. Over thousands of years, they're compressed to form glaciers, but then break off to form icebergs. An average one weighs 200,000 tons. And that, give or take, is around 100 trillion snowflakes that form the structures that the expedition is trying to model, using a combination of sonar robots and Doug's first-hand observations.
I basically have a good look at one side of the berg between the surface and 30 metres. Tell them what I saw and it will mean that they can interpret the sonar data that comes back. They'll get a better idea of it if I've seen it for myself. It's quite eerie going down the side of the iceberg. You're going down into the darkness, into the blue, into the green. And very occasionally there'll be this really loud thump, just like someone had hit you with the flat of their hand in the centre of your chest, where the iceberg is banging on the bottom. You really don't want to go too far down because there is a real danger of being squished by the iceberg underneath.
Well, you always worry when divers are in the water, but iceberg diving, there's even more of that anticipation and excitement that goes on in the lower part of your belly.
So you swim in and you begin to see the details. You begin to realise that this is not a flat wall of ice going into the depths. This has tiny little dimples on it, which it almost looks like a giant golf ball.
These features are added to the models to understand how they affect the way the icebergs float and travel over long distances and into the shipping lanes.
It's good to contribute to science at a basic level like this, when the science is still developing, to come in, take some shots which help the scientists. That's really useful.
For all their unpredictability, there is regularity in the behaviour of icebergs. If you look carefully and ask the right questions, which is what science is all about.